Hi, I'm Lyle Sapel. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to answer the question because I get asked this all the time. How do I know I'm working on the right idea? Okay, as a creative person, I know the dilemma because you start with a project and you think, is this project going to give me first of all, the success, the money, and the attention that I want from making this particular thing? And in the kind of work that I'm in, where I'm working with a lot of expensive materials like jades and all kinds of gemstones, it's really important to know when you start a project if that's the right thing that's going to appeal to your clientele or your commission people or your gallery people, whatever that is. So how do you know you're going to be working on the right project instead of wasting your time? So one of the things that happens a lot when I'm training new people or introducing sculpture ideas to new people, or people are learning for the first time in the creative world, they believe that the one project they do is, the thing that they really want to have and get accepted for. So they kind of live and die for the acceptance of the first thing they ever do. Well, that's kind of a hard thing to live by. It's a really tough road. So I'm going to explain how to overcome these fears and come up with the right project when you need to do it the right project. So, but first of all, I want to talk about what I'm doing today in my studio, the project I'm working on right now. So I have a drawing or a photograph of a piece I've made in the past, and I have a request to do something similar to that piece again. So I'm going to work on that right now. This is a piece for you, Linda, and today that's what we're going to talk about is your piece. And it's going to give you a little bit of insight on how I go about doing these different complicated forms. So first of all, this is the base. It's a sphere with an amethyst opening here. And that's going to be the main part of the sculpture as a sort of a setting. And I love to use sort of natural things as an indication of nature or the possibility, and then take it into some stylized formation. So in this case, I'm using nephrite jade, and this is just carved and it's not finished. So I want to show you how I'm going to finish it. So these are going to be reeds that are going to hold up quartz crystal birds, and here's one that's ready to go for the detailing and so on. So it's been roughed in, and that's quartz crystal. So he's going to sit here, or she is going to sit here, and something like that with a secondary one up onto this reed pattern here. So they'll be pinned together. So the idea is that they're in a relationship, these birds. They're in a relationship, and they're communicating with each other here. And I'm going to put some eggs, crystal eggs, inside this opening, so that'll be their nest and their home, and they'll be on top and around it. So it's going to be a really nice piece, fun to make, interesting to do all these complicated forms. Nice contrast between the nice smooth and round shapes with the sharp lines on the reeds here. So it's going to be really fun to do that. Now let me show you, for those of you that haven't worked on things like this before, how do I get into all these sharp edges and finish that off? Let me show you over here. So this is my usual detail bench. I love to spend a lot of time here working on things. So I use references for birds and things of that kind. Let me just get my pencil. So I use my big grinder, and I rough in the shapes. Spent most of yesterday working on the rough in here on this piece, and so I love to kind of just go with the flow on the birds. So this is the carrot or the type of bird I'm using as a reference, and then I'll just go with that and work it through with the detailing. So along with the facial details and the eyes, I'm going to put the feathers in here for the wings. And so I know this is the pattern I've got a lot of experience with the birds, so this is going to be like the setup for it, for the bird feather pattern. So it's a lot like shingles on a roof, that's how I think of it. So it'll be kind of like that when I'm done. So that'll all be cut and carved, sanded, finished, detailed, and the face will be here. You'll have some more detail in here, so the idea is to get a nice expression with that bird, and it'll be polished with a texture on the outside surface, so it'll be lovely. But this piece here, it is really tough to get into these really tight spots here, and I have sort of a tool that is from Fordham, and it's got a soft edged sander here, and that can go into these areas like that. But it's a bit bulky for the tiny tight spots. So what I like to do is make my own tool, and so I use a leftover bit, something that's been worn out, like a diamond grinding tool of some kind, maybe something like this. And then I glue a piece of foamy rubber on the outside of it, and then I use a diamond paper that's glued onto that surface. And here's something that I like to use. This is like really flexible diamond on a cloth backing. And this is like a 1200 grit, so I'm still at the beginning. That's the final sanding paper. So that I'll cut and I'll glue on and then shape it to the end of the tool. So let me just show you how that's going to work. So it just kind of rides in these nice tight spots like that. I'm not using water, but I would normally use water, and it'll wash away all the dust and so on. All right, so I'm going to sand it probably 4 different times with different grits, and then I'm going to polish it pretty much all in the same way. I'll use a bigger tool first and then the smaller one, and eventually work it down. Now, if we have a little moisture here, I can show you what it's going to be like. And I know, Linda, you really like the chromium in the jade here, so this is what I've chosen here. Is that I got a beautiful piece of dark green with the emerald green chromium spots. And I don't know if you can see that on the camera yet, but it's all through the piece here. It's really, really lovely. So I know you're going to love it. I love it. So if I love it, then I'm sure someone else will love it. And I think that's kind of the point I'm making today, is that, if you're trying to wonder if you're on the right creative path with your idea, then you got to think about how you feel about it, and quite often you have to have the direction or the goal or the reason why you're making it. And so if you have kind of a false reason to make something, then you're probably not going to go off in the right direction with the piece. And so it's important to have a really good foundation about how you approach these things. And one of the things that's important about the creative process is that it is a process, and that you know that it is a process. And it's not just something that just pops into your head and you go, wow, I love it, I'm going to make it. Because quite often that idea or that concept gets confused in your mind with a different kind of thinking process. So what I was talking about a couple of days ago was sort of this knuckle down idea where you have a project and you want to get it done and you just go at it and make it so. That kind of idea is very, very difficult to deal with creative ideas and different approaches, and to be flexible with how you're going to deal with your projects. So what I would suggest is to have an approach that involves divergent thinking. Now, I think there's 2 kinds of ways that you can think about your projects, and that's divergent thinking, which means that you have a variety of thoughts on one particular subject, like say these birds, for instance, how I would put them together into a composition. using reeds, using sticks, using branches, using solid base, something that's like that. So what I like to do if I'm going to do something that's original like that is kind of think it all out. And I love to keep like a notepad or something that is part of my sketchbook and make notes about what I'm doing and how I'm going to do it. So that's divergent thinking, a variety of thoughts on how to approach the subject. Important part of the creative process. The other part that I spoke about is the convergent thinking. And that's always a really practical way to accomplish something, but it's like, you know, we're going to pound a nail into the board, you're going to hit it and you're going to get it done. You're not going to hit the board over here or hit the board over there or try a couple of different nails. You're going to be focused on the attention that it needs and get it done. That's very good for any kind of business practice or any kind of really concrete concept that might need to be handled, like you know, banking, bookkeeping, that kind of thing is important. But when you're working on design ideas, divergent thinking is kind of like one of the first steps. Your goal is and desire, the reason you're going to make it is the very first step. And then you're going to move on to the divergent thinking where you come up with a variety of ideas and then go forward with them. So, important to keep this concept in mind, to have a variety of ideas. So when, often when I'm saying people that are new to the creative realm, they learn a little bit of a process and then they create something and then they feel that, okay, this is it. I'm going to live and die by whether this is accepted or denied. And if it's denied, you lose faith in yourself and you feel depleted. And why would you ever want to do this again if you're not going to get accepted or have, you know, some appreciation for your efforts? Well, you got to really have a different mindset. You have to have something a little more expanded. Rather than to just focus on the one thing, you have to kind of think about your creative endeavors on a wider, longer time span, for instance. So if you're new, I always say, like, this is a kind of a crazy idea, but what I say is, when you're brand new, you need to make at least 100 things, whatever it might be, you know, like, if you're a writer, you got to write a lot of stories. If you're a painter, you got to paint a lot of paintings. If you're a sculptor, you got to do a lot of different things. So the best thing to do is probably draw, probably write, probably keep a journal of ideas that you can keep a lot of energy going on around those sort of things. And then you come up with one of those things or one of those ideas is going to work for you. Something that really, you know, makes you feel good. You want to be the person that's going to make that happen. So that's part of the process. And so really the answer is not that creativity is one solution to one goal. Creativity is a mindset that's like a rhythm, and a rhythm in your life. So you need to be part of that rhythm while you are creating, and it's not a one-time thing. So it becomes a mindset. Now I know a painter that painted for 17 years, like almost every day, painted. Like, if you imagine how many paintings this person had. They just filled their basement. They kept files and files and files of these paintings, but every day for 17 years. Never sold one painting, but they were dedicated. They felt good about the paintings they made, but they never sold anything. People didn't really get it, maybe, until one day, someone came by, a dealer, looked at the work and went, oh my God, I love it. And they bought the whole thing, bought the whole collection. So instead of getting love and acceptance as you go along with your project, this person got love and acceptance at the end. So it's kind of like a fairy tale Hollywood story, but it can happen. So, but that person believed in themselves. So not to be discouraged. The idea is to kind of think in a broader sense. Think in terms of more. You have to be in this field, in this concept, in this idea of being creative, rather than do it once, get a successful outcome. Okay, so rhythm, that's the answer. So, if you have any questions or you want to know more about what I'm doing, you can drop me a line on Facebook or comment on this post. Love to hear from you, so stay creative.